All right, so we're live, and I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Trampled Underfoot podcast show. That's Mark Lindsay, and this is Eloy Escajedo. And
Aloha.
nothing. What's going on?
Oh man, just getting ready for the holiday, the big one coming up with too many kids,
Kwanzaa?
grandkids, and everything else. Yeah, Saint
Kwanzaa?
no Saint Filbert's Day, the patron saint of nuts. I mean, what can I say? I don't know if there is a Saint Filbert. I mean, it's just getting everything together and getting everything ready for the big Christmas thing coming up. And I mean, geez, December 7th. We've only got, as we record this, December 7th, we've got, what, 23 days?
Yeah.
Oh, no, not even that. What am I saying? 23 days left of the month, 24 days left of the month. They said there'd be no math, 15 days, 16 days, 16 days.
Yeah, it's almost next year.
I'm serious. I mean, I know it's a cliche that the older you get, the faster the year goes.
But it's true.
It's absolutely the truth, you know. I remember we were all excited about, holy cow, 2020 is coming along. 2020 is coming along. And then 2020 was a dumpster fire. And this isn't really, this is a train wreck, not so much a dumpster fire. But who knows? I mean,
What do you mean a train wreck?
well, the optimism of getting the hell away from 2020 and 2021 wasn't much better.
Oh no, that's gone.
Yeah.
In respect to the getting better part, I am not necessarily an optimist, as you've grown to see
Yeah.
in our conversations. Um, but I don't think that I'm not an optim. Well, I can't say I am an optimist, but I'm more of oh well.
Yeah.
I'm more of a oh well. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That's my angle.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah.
You know, with a through expletives thrown in as we go.
Yeah.
But I understand that um, the train wreck thing. I like the use of it. Well, it's kind of violent to be honest with you, but um, it works. It
Yeah.
works on a global scale.
Well,
Um,
it does if you use it in the right way. I used it in the wrong way just now because a train wreck is far worse than a dumpster fire.
yeah.
You know. So let me rephrase it. It's not 2021 wasn't a train wreck. 2021 was just a standard garbage can fire in the middle of your kitchen.
Well, on the heels of that, I will mention a couple of things to see what you think,
Okay.
or just whatever
Yeah.
Um, on the heels of that, related to that, in a way. Um, thank goodness for the internet, and at the same time, in my opinion, it is one of the very mechanisms used to direct and basically tamp down all sorts of different ways of thinking. Just so it's good and it's bad, like everything in life. I ran across a video, and I know never much about Australia. I've never been much to like invest, other than some Opal videos, and maybe in the past with Crocodile Dundee, and the fact that they always seemed so similar to us, especially when they'd come out on tour when I worked in the Everglades. I could see a very similar thing with Australians and Americans, although there's vast differences, but
Sure. But there,
there's
yeah, I would agree with you there. There's kind of an independence and a frontier spirit there in them as well as America.
right.
So
Um, exactly. Um, yeah, a frontiers. I don't want to say it, but I guess I'm gonna have to say it like a sort of like a cowboy old west,
Hmm.
which I guess it's the same difference. You get a little bit of that vibe,
Hmm.
as opposed to the reserved or more. I don't want to say refined, but
More
that you get.
regimented.
Yeah, the more regimented that you get in Europe, particularly the
Hmm.
Great Britain and then England and this and that. There's something about these tentacles that moved out into the New World and I guess down under.
Yeah.
Um, but so I saw a video where a lady did an interview to go out into the world. Um, I'll just say it like this: they have frickin' re-education camps now currently. Um, they have a camp somewhere in their desert where they take people that refuse vaccination or are a bit troublemaker. These are Australian, and they put them in there. And I, the lady, you have a trailer. There's like a bunch of. It's like imagine somewhere in the middle of Las Vegas, the desert, and you have like a community. Well, they have a community in their area, but it's fenced in, and there's fences between um, living quarters, and then it's it's got your bathroom, it's got your everything. It's like barracks, let's say. Um, and the lady's there because she had some sort of verbal altercation. Like she was very hard up on saying no to um, the treatment. Let's say, let's use that. But the thing is, in the conversation, she filmed and then they posted it in the part of the interview after the fact, where the Australian authorities are standing outside saying, "You got to stay in and stuff." Well, I just want to step out. I get stir crazy here. They have, and she's not. According to, she's not. There's nothing wrong. Her thing was that she was a little bit headstrong, let's say, and they put her there. The logistics of that, I don't know, but there's a lot of people there. Well, they put tape in front of her house on her outside porch. It's not her house, but you get what I'm saying. It's
I do.
where she's living. And they said, you can't step outside that tape. There's no bars or mesh to prevent her from stepping out. But the whole thing seemed very dictator, very sort of like very weird. And they're standing there and say, "We don't want to fine you 5,000 whatever, or I don't know what, but if you do it again, and we could do it now, but I don't want to do that. We're just trying to be the good guys here. We're just following orders," the guy says, and she's filming this, and so she can't step out. But she has to do it herself. Like there's no fence there. She has to not step out, and they've got their eye on her and stuff. And so it was an interview like that, and I was like, "Wow." Um, it was well,
Yeah, I've done a little bit of looking into this because I don't know that I saw that video, but I did see an interview video. And basically they're calling them quote unquote quarantine centers. And supposedly originally these were supposed to be for people coming into Australia who didn't have vaccines or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, I haven't followed the story enough to know if this is Australian citizens being scooped up and sent to these places or what.
well, she
But
was an Australian
I
citizen.
okay, but I do know enough to know that they do exist and they're calling them quarantine camps.
Yeah, yeah. That
But
doesn't. You can paint. You know what I'm saying. You can
yeah,
paint up a.
look, no, I'm not trying to paint any kind of picture at
No, not
all.
you, not
Oh,
you,
okay.
not you. I'm saying like
Mhm.
the Gestapo can paint look, this is your new home.
Yeah.
they can
Well,
they can paint it up, and I'm not trying. So I don't want to, but to me, it goes against
well,
every fiber of, you know, like everything, but
yeah.
they're doing that kind of stuff, and yeah, the logistics of that. But I know Australians are pissed off. I do know.
Well, yeah, if you don't have to look far to find that there are uh, massive protests in Australia over the way the government is handling this entire thing, up to and including today. But of course, that's not something that they want out, so it gets downplayed in the press. So,
Yeah.
but
um and on the other side of that, talking about dumpster fires and train wrecks, um so these are a few of the things that I've seen. I also saw something in China where there's a specific ethnic group that they're sort of like between, they're kind of like an offshoot of the Turks, I think it was, and they're putting them in re-educate. Those are the ones that are called re-education camps, and the government, that's their official stamp on it. And
yeah.
what it is that these people have their own culture. They're
Mhm.
Muslim, that's their tradition, but they don't quite fit with the rest of China and what their, what their thing is. And so um, a lot of human rights organizations have mentioned that there's been stuff like forced sterilization. um,
China is kind of known for that.
yeah,
Um, you know, how to put it delicately. Well, there's no way you can put it delicately, but again, that doesn't surprise me. When you have colonial aspirations and the entire point of your existence is conquest, you can't be surprised that things like this happen. And we know the Chinese government just doesn't care. They just don't care. They either blend in with society or you're gone.
there seems to be, there always there always has, but putting all that and considering the year, like that's the thing,
Mhm.
and the dumpster fire concept that you had mentioned, those things, and then the fact that, at least I see it, a lot of people may not, but I see it, where it's like originally, in for the first decade or two of the internet, I mean this new era of like vast, exchange of ideas and stuff, it
Mhm.
was like the old west. And yet people, I mean, people conducted themselves as they would, you know um to all the extent that a human being is capable of. You have mostly decent people, and then some people, harassments and all sorts of stuff. And then you have liars and fraud, and that's, wherever you go, you,
Thieves.
thieves, But the idea of putting out a concept over whatever topic, let's say history, and you know, you and I disagree on a topic of history. I bring forth, points, and you bring forth points, and and maybe um in that discussion, right, both have good points, and the viewer then can look at both things, maybe do follow up information, maybe not. But the point is that at least there's contrasting concepts being put forth on whatever topic. um, you know, dolphin radars in the 20th century or whatever the hell. Um, and that's healthy. As far as I understand it, I don't want, personally, an official everything without any competing. I want to hear not only an official um, stance on whatever, be it politics or news, but I also want to hear what voices are saying, that might differ with that. And I also want to go ahead and make my own decision. Just like the buffalo jump, that famous photo of the buffalo jumping off the cliff. Um, I think that is every individual's choice to not follow, or follow, or take a pause and balance things out. But I feel that there's been a tamping down, or a sort of um, hurting information, you know, in one direction, and we see that with a lot of these main, and I don't like that. Um, I don't like that idea too, and I think that it's like an arm leading. It's a branch of other things that are occurring in a direction of less independence for the individual and more group, sort of like follow the herd. So that's the dumpster fire that I've seen, um, apart from
And
other things occurring within these last 2 years.
well, it's more than 2 years. I agree with you on a lot of that. One thing to remember, though, about that painting of the buffalo going over the cliff is that wasn't a choice. They were being stampeded off that cliff
Right.
purposely.
Yeah.
Well, as far as the internet is concerned, this took me a while to figure out, and I still haven't thought it completely through. But if you think of the internet as mass media that we all contribute to, I think that'll go a long way to explaining a lot of what's going on. Because as far as your dumpster fire is concerned and train wreck, because prior to the internet, you had limited sources, but they were all mass media, television, newspapers, radio, movies, books. That was considered the mass media. Now we've added every social media outlet you can think of. We've added message forums. We've added web pages, websites. And for the most part, I won't say all because it's not all by any stretch of the imagination. But for the most part, the driving force behind all of it is money. It's all get the clicks, get the ads in front of the viewer, get the ads in front of the reader. People are paid on these websites not based on the number of people who click on an ad, but on how many times the page that ad is on has been accessed. So every voice can be broadcast out there. Not every voice is going to be listened to. And just the same as back when it was the major three networks and a few national newspapers, you are going to gravitate to the source you either like the most or agree with the most. And the one that fits your preconceived notions, that feels the most comfortable to you. The difference is now you're not limited to that. You can create your own little neck of the woods and pick and choose information from all the sources you want to pick and choose from, regardless of their accuracy, their veracity, or their motive. So, what that does is that serves to divide people, keep people fighting amongst themselves, and we don't even realize that we're doing it to ourselves because we can do it too. We're not stuck being the consumer, we can be the producer. Anybody can put up a web page, anybody can start a social media account and just start broadcasting their opinions. There's a lot of good that comes with that, but there's also a lot of, I'll just say it, there's also a lot of crap that comes with that. And you have to be diligent in your wading through the crap to get to the good. If you are not the kind of person who's willing to put in the hours, do the research, do your due diligence, and is willing to just accept something based on what a friend is reading or what a friend recommends or what they see coming up on their Facebook feed, then that's all you're ever going to learn. And sadly, I think that's the majority of people who are online. Just my opinion. But I think most people don't take the time to analyze. Most people don't take the time to double check or cross reference. They're willing to accept the fact that the moon's made of green cheese. I mean, think about it. More people believe the earth is flat today than they did 100 years ago. Why is that? Because there are more ways for people to make money off of that theory.
Yeah. So I'm not necessarily troubled with an abundance of information coming from any direction inbound,
Mm.
um, whether it's accurate or not. I'm not. I don't. I think it's not. My business would be that if I'm in the business of news, then I want to be accurate, but not everyone in the business of news is wanting to be accurate.
Right.
But even the major, what one would consider the official, you know,
The major networks, yeah.
networks, because they don't report on a lot of things. Just today, I saw, this is a weird thing. I saw, it's not a weird thing, it's a screwed up thing. Um, the January 6th insurrectionist people,
Mm-hmm.
the Capitol riot people,
Uh-huh.
um, the ones that were arrested are waiting in a facility in Washington, D.C. to be tried. And all of a sudden, there was a press conference with representatives, a bunch of the names that you see now. And they happened to go and visit the facilities, see how these people were doing. And they came up and did a press conference.
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting a chance to see their lawyers. Remember, these are American. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
they did the insurrection. Well, that's to be seen in front of a judge, but let's grant the issue that they were there. And
Innocent until proven guilty, but
but
still
there is that.
remains. Yeah.
Well, they're not being given um, adequate, ability to make phone calls, to talk with their lawyers in private. They're not giving them the ability to clean themselves up, cut their nails, just a bunch of stuff, cut their hair. There's people there with broken, you know, parts of their hands and stuff. One older gentleman that's a vet, his hand is black. They say these are United States congressmen and women. They gave this press conference, so you know, and so they said that what's going on here is unacceptable and that you should report it, meaning the press that was there, the official press. And they made the comparison of the certain politicians actually created a fund to get the rioters across America, the looters and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were making the comparison. Well, here you have the January 6th, but here you have people across America where these other politicians are getting
Fundraising for them, yeah.
fundraising for them. So me as a viewer watching that conference, um, I couldn't help but think that that one group and the other group, they're like factions of and I've always mentioned this, but like factions of, you could just chalk them up if you take away, um, you know, if you could look at them like factions of the mafia. They use the power that they have. They use all these. So, but remember, this is America, and this is not supposed to be the way, they're supposed to be. So there's a lot of stuff that the media doesn't necessarily cover. So all this is part of that dumpster fire thing. And you know, as far as more information clouding up and all that, yes, I can see that the majority of people, I'm assuming that the majority of people, I think it would be a safe bet, um, are not going to go ahead and filter out all those things, and they're just going to go take the
But
route of the mainstream stuff that they're used to.
it's the herd mentality.
Right.
It's the
And
herd mentality. They're going to follow the herd.
yeah, and not everybody has the opportunity. I mean, it's no excuse, but at the same time, not everybody's on the same sort of like channel, looking at the same stuff. And so it's kind of like, um, they have no time for it. Maybe they have family situation or just the normal course of life and stuff. And not everybody can go ahead and do that. And we are millions of people here, hundreds of
Yeah.
millions of people. So,
But
yeah.
I think that's a cop out, because I think if you want to do it, you will make the time to do it.
No, it's not a
And
cop out.
I think no, I don't mean on your part. I mean
No,
on
not on
their.
me. I'm saying on them. It's
I think it's a cop out, because if you are interested in it, you will find out. You will take the time. Especially to look into something that may take 5 minutes out of your day. If you're interested in it, if you want to know more, you will find out more. If that means you get to bed 10 minutes later over the course of an evening, so be it. You will find out. The thing is, most folks just aren't interested because they think it doesn't affect them.
There was an interview talking about another layer. There was an interview of one of the founders of Wikipedia,
Mm-hmm.
and he was interviewed. He lives somewhere in Ohio. The guy,
Mm-hmm.
he no longer is associated with that, as far as I could tell in the interview. And you could find it on online,
Yeah.
if and in the conversation, he the whole thing was, what's happening with information.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked this guy that's the Wikipedia guy, and he says, well, unfortunately, the information on some pages are the official, what the official mouthpieces want, and what corporations want, and what
Well, sure.
he says what they'll do is, and they talked in depth, but what they'll do is, if there's a topic category that particular company is interested in, having a certain explanation of what it is,
Mm-hmm.
they'll go ahead and have people on hand constantly there, so that if anybody comes in to try to change the information or
Sure.
add to it, their people are there to bring it right back home to the. And what
Well,
he mentioned, was the same thing that I had mentioned earlier, is that you need to have in an article, if an event happens, and there's people that have contradictory information, or a situation, if you have an article about whatever topic, that information that doesn't jive with the rest of it, at least a paragraph or something, to show that there's a situation involved in. But when these companies get involved, and they want that narrative, they're going to go ahead and not allow for that secondary voice to come in. And he was explaining that's just completely a bad thing, that
I
you
don't.
want.
I see it. I see it as a give and take. Let's say, for the sake of argument, you make toothpicks for a living. You got Eloy's Toothpick Factory there down the road from you in Sweetwater. And somebody comes along onto a Wikipedia article about your toothpick factory, and they say every toothpick you make is tested by poking a puppy in the side with it to make sure it's sharp enough. You've never had puppies in your factory. think you want somebody there to correct the record? I mean, I get what you're saying, but I see it as a double-edged sword. They do have to protect their reputation from people who just may have a grief with them, a beef with them, you
Yeah.
know. But then again, corporate shills are everywhere. I mean, it doesn't have to be as blatant as like a Wikipedia page. Have you read some of the Amazon reviews on some of these items that they're selling? I can't look at Amazon reviews without wondering how many of those reviews are paid for,
Right.
you know? So there's always going to be somebody there watching a company's website to make sure that somebody doesn't throw in something that's completely out in left field and absolutely a fabrication just because they have a personal vendetta against this company. But there is also going to be somebody there, probably the same person, to make sure that the information on that company follows the company's official press release or their official spokesman's words, you know. So I can see it as a double-edged sword. I mean, they'd be foolish not to have somebody checking a Wikipedia page about their company. It would just be they'd be I mean, remember, we're talking about the internet. The people who named a naval vessel Bodie McBoatface. Come on. You have to have a presence and you have to have somebody watching that presence.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I think that the thing is that this is a live, ongoing
Yeah.
process. The Wikipedia, but
Mm-hmm.
what this founder is saying is that um, the big guys have taken over, and
Well, they always do.
yeah, um, and that the point is that if there is a topic like the JFK, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no way there's no way of adding extra information that's not wanted. Who says what's official and what's not official? If you have links, if you have whatever, and it's a contradicting thing to the narrative, and who says that they can't add it? Um,
Well,
who gets to say that?
I see where you're going with this, and let me just flat out say that I am against any regulatory agency taking control of what's put on the internet and what isn't. I don't think it's going to take legislation to correct any perceived problem with the internet. What it's going to take is it's not legislation, but litigation. What they're going to have to do is they're going to have to make these powers that be are going to have to make the decision finally, once and for all. Is Facebook a publisher or is it a service? If it's a publisher, then yes, it's responsible for what gets posted using its service. Just as a publisher is responsible for a book or a magazine or the information contained therein. If it's a service, then they have to back off and stop with the BS fact checking this and you know throwing covering up something innocent like a chocolate pie recipe and saying this contains sensitive information. Are you really sure you want to view it? It's a recipe for chocolate pie. Don't fact check chocolate. Okay? It's gonna have to take they're gonna have to come down and decide. And if they are just a service and they are not responsible, and we as individuals are responsible, then we are going to have to be responsible for what we say. And when I say it's going to take litigation to solve it, I mean, if I come along and say Eloy's Toothpick Factory tests every toothpick on puppies, you need to be able to sue me for defamation and for libel, slander, whatever. Because right now that is very, very limited, and that needs to be opened up. I mean, it, if I can come up with a web page and say that, well, I can add something to the JFK argument and provide a bunch of links to websites that I put up to make it look like green men came down from Mars and did it. The estate of JFK should have the ability to come in and sue me for defamation. I don't mean just putting out false information, but if I slander somebody or, you know, muddy the waters or what have you, or if I impugn upon somebody's character, it'd be just the same thing as if the news went on today and defamed you or defamed me. We have the right to sue. Well, if I have the right to sue Lad Bible, the web presence, because they posted something defamatory about me, they're going to self censor. They're going to think about it before any of this malicious crap comes out, is what I'm getting at. They don't have any skin in the game right now because they can just say, oh, whoopsie, oh well, and it'll blow over. It's done.
There's a lot of individual people with certain ideas for whatever topic, that become, but in particular when it has to do with politics, that stand above the rest in their delivery and whatever show, like they'll do a YouTube or whatever the hell. And a lot of these people, I don't even visit Twitter because it's just evil. The nastiness is like a continual thing of nastiness. But like YouTube or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
platform, and these are individuals. And what I notice is that when individuals from the mud and muck of the bayou start to climb certain ladders, and they are on par or above your official platform organizations that are out there trying to do the news, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
um, they get shut down quickly. Not all of them. A lot of them are out there, but you hear them when they talk that, oh, we got to watch our mouths here, we got to watch our mouths there, we got to watch, oh, we shouldn't say this. So you hear self censoring
Yeah.
and stuff on things that, you know, there's a narrative of don't cross this line, don't cross that line, and there's bounds and stuff. And so these platforms, these huge, they do create with these tactics a chilling type of effect where your free
Right.
flow of ideas, um,
And
with the fear of being, you know what I'm saying,
and
like
that's
this.
what I mean. It needs to be decided, are they publishers or are they just services? Because if they're publishers, they can be held liable for something somebody else posts. But if they're considered services and they're not liable for what you or I post, then those things can kind of go out the window. Now, that doesn't mean people escape responsibility. You and I self censor all the time.
Yeah, I'm
Not
doing it right now.
not just because we're afraid of something YouTube or our podcast host or our website sponsor
No,
might
it's part of,
say.
it's just us trying to
No,
be level.
understood. But we also self censor because we need to be accurate. We can't spread false information about somebody. So there's that form of self censorship as well. We may want to go off about a certain person, but we have to be careful when we do. We're allowed to have our opinions, but I can't say that you test toothpicks by poking the side of a puppy because it's just not factually true. So
At the
I
very
have to be careful with that.
at the
So,
very least, what you can do is that you can say that allegedly, due to these people's investigation or due to this or that, It is said that, but you can't say confirmed. The news does it all the time.
I know that. And it's only because they have better lawyers than you or I, so that they get away with it. And like I said, it's going to take some legislation because some of our laws do need to be changed. The way it sits right now, you've heard the phrase absence of malice. If a news organization says you stab puppies in the side with your toothpicks and presents it as fact, and you try to go after them in court, all they have to say is, best information we had, that's what happens. If that information was wrong, we're not responsible. The person we got the information from is wrong. So you have to prove malice, that they were going after you personally. And if you can't prove that, then it's just a giant oopsie. Never mind the fact that your business has just gone down the drain. If you can't prove that they were intentionally trying to drive you out of business, you're just out of business. Sorry. Well, that needs to be changed. They need more skin in the game, because it used to be the news was concerned about being accurate. We have to get the story, and we have to get the story right. Now, the news concentrates on being first. We have to get that story out there first, and we can clean up the details later. And with the 24-hour news cycle, there's always going to be something bigger coming up next hour that's going to shove this headline off of the front page, whether we were correct or not. So it's become a monster that feeds itself, never corrects itself, because they don't have enough skin in the game. I firmly believe in a free press, but I'm also firmly believe in personal responsibility, and carelessness in the absence of malice, I don't think flies. I think carelessness in the absence of malice should be just as, I think it should be just as much a violation as a proof of malice. We've seen too many people's careers destroyed because somebody got the wrong name. We've seen too many people get destroyed in the public's in the court of public opinion because somebody made an assumption and ran with it. And it doesn't matter the source, because once one source starts riding one particular horse, all the rest of them want to jump in the wagon behind it, because they don't want to be left behind. They don't want to be that news organization that didn't report on it. They have to do it, whether it's right or wrong. I mean,
look. No, go ahead.
What was the big story on September 10th, 2001? It was the murder of Chandra Levy. And everybody was saying that Congressman Gary Condit had something to do with it because they had had an affair. And Condit ended up resigning from Congress over the entire thing. It was found out a couple of years later that it was a serial killer. She just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was another guy who killed her and several other people in that park. And Condit had zero to do with it. He was 100% innocent of anything.
There was another headline that happened September 10th, 2001.
What was that?
I don't want to say it's bigger than the one you just said, but in a roundabout way, it's bigger in another direction, where all of a sudden the Pentagon had, I don't know how many billions or trillions of dollars that simply went missing.
Oh, yes.
But all that got snuffed out
on September 11th, exactly.
On September 11th. But I will say, well, go ahead.
Well, my whole point on that was we were so focused on Gary Condit that we, and I say we as a nation in the news cycle, everybody was sure he did it. Everybody was sure he had something to do with her murder. And it just didn't, because you had people all over the place putting two and two together and coming up with five, but reading it as four. And the press focused on him and kept focusing on him and kept focusing on him. And every little inconsistency. I mean, one minute he said he had scrambled eggs for breakfast, and the next minute he said he had oatmeal. So which one is it? And if he's lying about this, what else is he lying about? That kind of thing. Armchair quarterbacks going in and playing forensic investigator because they saw 3 episodes of Columbo. What I'm getting at is it's real easy for the press to drive a story that tries and convict someone in the court of public opinion without having any of the facts at all. And we now involved in social media, and I include myself in this, we perpetuate and we drive that machine based on the information we get from the sources we either agree with, the sources we like, or the sources we just happen to see somewhere that makes us scratch our heads and go, maybe this is right. But we're all doing it. We're all participants in this new form of mass media without really our knowledge or without really realizing it. So I really honestly think if we want something to change, it's going to take a little bit of legislation to decide, are these services responsible for what people post or not? And if not, back off, and you are responsible for what you post, and you can be held to the same standard as anybody else. So if you make up lies about somebody and make it public, you are under those libel and slander laws.
Yeah.
I
I
think
think
when
that
people have skin in the game, they're a little bit more responsible about things.
yeah. I think that so I don't think I wouldn't have a problem with that because that eliminates a lot of issues. Because you know, so to be honorable, these sound like outdated things, but what I mean by honorable is that, oh, here's Mark. I'm not going to go ahead and publicly say, oh, but Mark this, and that, and it be all lies. But in order for me to gain some sort of advantage for whatever a deal or, I'm going to go ahead and undermine and do that fraudulently. And Mark now is damaged his business because I went and did this misdeed and stuff. And so on our level, let's say, I think that it's appropriate, now it can get into little tit for tats as well. But if so, thinking about it, a huge organization saying Mark Lindsay or Eloy did this and that, and it's a lie, and it's a big organization, and they have a huge reach, and therefore they're they can damage me more because just they're a bigger organization. They can damage me more because the information gets out there, it's false and whatnot. Whereas something between me and another person that's just regular Joe, it has a limited scope of like damage. So some stuff are just would be considered frivolous and stuff. But even on the level of human to human, that's not that damaging. Um, if it does rise to the occasion where it meets a certain monetary, and you can show that no, this guy ruined my business or ruined my reputation, and there's a monetary sort of thing or endangerment, or I think that everybody should be on the same, should be liable at whatever degree that liability is.
Right.
Because I think I agree.
And I think right now it's a gray area because we don't know what could happen 5 years from now. Okay. You and I could have a back and forth on Facebook, let's say. We disagree on a subject and we don't get personal. We don't attack each other, but we present our version of the facts. And then we come to a conclusion. Who's to say that that conversation, just that conversation, won't prevent you or me from getting a job in the future? I mean, look at Kevin Hart on Twitter. The man was set to host the Oscars, and somebody had to go way back and find one tweet that they didn't like. They had to go way back and they took it from him. They said, no, you can't host the Oscars because you said something 10 years ago that we don't like. Now, he put that out there himself. Nobody else did that.
Just
But,
like a conversation that we might have,
right,
where we're not let's say we're not insulting each other, but
right.
we are having a discussion, and maybe 10 years down the line somebody reads that discussion and they find issue with a point you made, and
Right.
therefore you don't get a
And
job.
so I don't get a job
Right.
because of it.
Yeah.
Or they take away an offer they made. Now, based on what you said back here in 2020, we're going to retract our. Right. Now, if I do that to myself, that's one thing. Because now we have a negotiation that we're going to have a back and forth, me and that company, because they made certain promises, I made certain promises, and now they're pulling those promises. Now our lawyers are going to talk. But if somebody else came along and did that to me, and they decided to pull that job offer, I should be able to go back on that other person. Now, yes, there has to be a statute of limitations.
I don't
But,
understand. What do you mean?
well, if somebody come along and sabotaged me, let's say I found out that, I don't know, I'm going to pick a mythical person, my sister. I don't have a sister, but let's say for the sake of argument, I do have a sister. My sister gets onto my Facebook page and she posts a bunch of crap. And for one reason or another, I don't see it. And then 5 years down the road, I come upon that, or somebody else sets up a website representing themselves as me and I don't find out about it. And then 5 years later, I find out through the grapevine that I missed out on 2 deals because of that website over there. I should be able to go after that person. Right now, it's a gray area. I should be able to go after my sister for getting on my Facebook page and posting a bunch of stuff as me. But right now, it's a gray area. I may be able to do it in some states. I may not be able to do it in other states. What I'm getting at is we need to quit kicking the can down the road and make some decisions about certain things. I'm not for any kind of an overreaching department who's going to regulate the internet. I'm for taking the gloves off, taking the cuffs off of people who feel that they're helpless to protect themselves or defend themselves against false allegations, false accusations, and condemnation in the court of public opinions. I mean, if Gary Condit could have gone after the major news networks and CNN and Fox and all the rest of the cable networks who were trying and convicting him, if he could have gone after them, he should have been able to.
There's also no um there's no real backdraft effect. There is, but there's no or we haven't seen here's the thing. I can't believe that a person can have, or an organization can have, a straight face,
Mm-hmm.
or a congressperson, and report as they've done as early as a few months ago that all the burning and looting, they describe it as peaceful protests.
Okay. Now, I'm going to interrupt for just a second here. If they're talking on the House floor during speeches or anything, or if they're talking on the Senate floor, they are protected. They are protected.
Yeah, I know that.
There are certain protections. Okay, but
I
maybe
know.
some folks out there may not know that. There are certain protections that they have for speaking while they're in session, whether it
They
be
can't be
2-minute speeches
touched.
or what have you. Basically, yes. If they go out and hold a press conference, they're the same as you and me. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, they're not the same as you and me when they go out on they are, but they're not
Right.
because they've done it.
They have to be more careful, is what I'm getting at. They're not as protected.
The president called Kyle Rittenhouse a white supremacist. I'm paraphrasing just to be
Mm-hmm.
clear. Or part of a white supremacist, this or that. And this is a 17, now 18-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, it was a screwed up thing. But a president chiming in when a court situation is on hand, going on, but at the same time, they're quite ready to
Well,
clench their lips when there's looting and burning and calling it peaceful protests.
well,
I
I mean,
think that's a very
well, the president is also protected in that while he's seated, excuse me, there are certain things that he can be held accountable for, and there's certain things he can't. That doesn't mean that nothing can happen after he leaves office. Once he leaves office, the gloves are off. So anybody that he disparages, proof has to be made that the person was damaged either physically, financially, withheld opportunities or something because of libel and slander and various other things.
I
But
understand.
if that can be proven, then I mean we're talking about a civil suit.
Right, I
So
understand.
there
Now,
are consequences. But what I'm talking about is less about the people on the upper echelons who have a huge public platform. I'm talking more about the regular Joes like you and me. Because you take a guy, and I'm going to go real innocent here. You take a guy like Izzy Swan, who made a YouTube video about building a little fold up picnic table. And his video got, a couple 100,000 views, which to a YouTuber is pretty good, especially in a niche like this, the maker community. But then you had somebody, some organization overseas, some quote unquote media company who downloaded his video online, sped it all up, cropped it to take his watermark out of it, put their own watermark over the top of it, and put music to it. Izzy's video gets a couple 100,000 views. Theirs gets 65 million. And there was no effort by Facebook to take it down. There was no effort by anybody to do anything for him. Now, if he was able to sue that company for the loss of revenues based on the number of views they got for it and the ad revenue they got off of that video, they would stop it like this. The thing is, he faced an uphill battle from the get-go because they have lawyers. He didn't. He would need money to go after them. Now, there are certain attorneys that'll take cases like this on a contingency basis where, okay, if we win, we get 1/3 of the proceeds. And if you're talking about 65 million views in 30 days, I'll give you 1/3 of those proceeds to go get me the remaining 2/3 and shut these people down. The problem is finding said attorney, having the money to file all the papers, and knowing what to do to begin with. What I'm getting at is us little guys need the same protection as the big guys. And when the handcuffs are taken off and we no longer have to prove malice, we don't have to prove that XYZ network was malicious when it said you use toothpicks. We don't have to prove malicious. We just have to prove falsehood. You lied about it. And you can't hide behind that. Well, our informant told us this. I'm willing to tell you anything. You give me a couple $100. You can't hide behind that. You can't wrap yourself in the flag and hide behind the Constitution and then spit on it every other time, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? There has to be, if it's equal justice for all, then that means everybody. That's my point. The little guy needs to be on par with the big guy, legally speaking. And right now, it just ain't happening. And it's not going to change anytime soon. And I'm going to get political because we keep electing lawyers. Why would the lawyers want to change it? That's what they are. That's who we elect. We elect lawyers. You think they're going to do something against lawyers? No. Stop electing lawyers. There, I'll get off my soapbox.
So, well, to be fair and even, YouTube did address that one problem, where now they have a button where you can go and click on it, and you'll, if somebody, depending on how much of your video, they'll say 40% of your video has been copied, or this amount,
Right.
and then you have options where you can message the person, close the person's video because it's got your content, or cut a deal so you get the proceeds from. So they did, to be fair to them, they did address that particular
YouTube
issue.
did.
Yeah.
I have no issue with YouTube. YouTube did that. And in fact, they'll pull it down if you want them to, or they'll just redirect all the revenue to you.
Right.
Facebook didn't. Facebook would go pull the video, but didn't have any kind of a punishment for the people who put the video up in the first place. And all they did was put it up again under a new name. Izzy is still chasing that video. And he put that out in 2017.
So somebody could do that. They could just go ahead and grab it from YouTube. And
it's called freebooting.
Yeah. Some people, like some groups, say, hey, go ahead and download all our stuff and repopulate the internet with it for whatever reason. Because some people say that due to the algorithms, we're not getting seen, and this information needs to get out. And so people go ahead and do that. And their model is that brings them the notoriety and propagating of who they are and what they do. And that's also a model that some folks go out of necessity.
Right. There's another also, there are, and don't get me wrong, there are a couple of different quote unquote media outlets, primarily on Facebook, who will go to the original content creator and license the video. And that content creator will give them permission to download it, or he'll just send them the original and they'll do their edits and everything for that purpose, to get it out there. I know a couple of musicians who have done just that. They had a video that just kind of went crazy, and these websites got a hold of them, paid him a sum of money to let them use those videos. So that's, I mean, and that's legit. That's up to the guy that made the video. So there's no issue there. What I'm saying is the little guy like you and me who has a video stolen, we need to have the same rights to go after somebody, even overseas, as a big company. I mean, you got shut down by you doing a cover of an Eagles tune. So you know what that's like. But to have somebody come along and take one of your songs.
Well, no, that's not, hold on. So to be fair,
without your permission is another thing entirely.
Right. But to be fair, since you mentioned that, so in reality, it's their song.
I understand that, and that's what I get at.
Let me just say this, because I was involved in it. So it is their song; they have that right.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's I was under the, and this was before there was monetary as far as
Mhm.
I knew on YouTube. This was like in 2007, 2008. I did it because I love the Eagles and I
Okay.
wanted to, show off,
Um,
what I could do. Um,
understood.
but
My only reason for
wait, but
bringing
let
it up,
me. Well, go ahead, go ahead, go
my
ahead.
only reason for bringing it up was that you've been on that end of it,
Yeah, but
and they
let me tie.
absolutely have the right to protect their song.
Yeah, let me tie it up in a nice bow. So when that happened, I got that flag that's been taken down by this, and that. Um, I thought that there was such a thing as, especially since there was no money being made, as what do you call it? When you do parody.
Hmm.
I thought that I was operating under that, but apparently they weren't happy even with that. To this day, people still do covers, and many people get shut down. Other people don't, depending on whatever the case is. But they do have a right.
Hmm.
One does have a right, and as far as YouTube is concerned, they've been good about it.
Right.
Other platforms, not so much.
Right.
But to be fair, me doing that,
Right.
um, you know,
My
um, I thought that I was operating under that. I think that there is such a thing in law
There
called,
is,
you know,
but it's only valid in court. That's something that, and we're getting way off topic here, but that's something that also needs to be looked at and rehashed because you're talking about the issue of fair use.
fair
Fair
use.
use only matters in a court of law. They have the right to pull that video down. You have the right to sue. You have the right to sue them for pulling that video down and argue your fair use case in court. And the judge could give you could agree with you 100% and order YouTube to put it back up and pay you for any lost revenue. But fair use is handled on a case by case basis. Fair use only matters in court. It does not matter out in the general population because the next guy who does the same thing with the same song may post a very similar video and go to court in a different city, in a different state, and get a different ruling. The judge may say, no, that wasn't a parody. That was a note by note copy. You stole their copyrighted material and judge for the Eagles record company. So that's another subject that needs to be tightened up. And we can go off on a tangent on that. We could do 10 episodes on fair use and copyright and trademarks. But my only point for bringing it up was because you've been on the receiving end of that. And, but if somebody were to take your song, strip away any identification that says this is Eloy Escojedo singing an original song and put it up on their website and present it as their work, completely leaving you out of the picture, you need to have the same rights they do to go after them. And right now, unless you happen to have a couple of attorneys in your back pocket, you are very limited in your recourse. That too needs to change, is all I'm getting at. The little guy needs to be on the same playing field as the big guy. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And when everybody has skin in the game, both on the defendant side and the plaintiff side, when everybody's on an even playing field, we'll see a lot of this crap go away.
Well, to get back to my earlier bit, just to wrap up, at least on my end, um, where you can have a year long media reporting saying these are, as an example, peaceful protests, while in the background you see flames and actual dumpsters on fire
Yep.
and people breaking windows and all this, and the media is saying point blank, because these are peaceful protests, and politicians that for some reason excuse that and say these are peaceful protests, um, and we see with our eyes that it's definitely not peaceful protests. um, they have no they have no necessarily any commitment to telling the truth. There's
Why
no
should they?
law that says, you know, and politicians, whether they're inside or outside, they could promise the world, and it's a lie, and they do it anyhow. The media, depending on the situation, will do the same for whatever reason. Um, and people will and can and have sued on certain topics and certain issues. But going back to honor, they can make an excuse, but there's no honor.
Forget about honor. There is no honor among thieves. I know you've heard that before.
No, really?
There is no honor among thieves.
No.
Forget it. So get that word out of your vocabulary.
Wash
And
my mouth out with soap.
the only person, the only people I can blame is us, because we keep feeding the monster. We keep tuning in.
That was the other part. Okay, so
We
the
keep tuning
feeding.
in. We keep going to the website. We keep clicking on the ads. We keep signing up for the newsletter. We keep
Right.
hitting the YouTube channels, and we keep electing the same idiots we scream about 2 days after election day. We
Okay, let me
really honestly,
address that.
if you hit your thumb with a hammer, things happen. If you purposely hit it again thinking you're going to get a different outcome this time, there is nothing anybody can do that's going to help you. It's not the hammer's fault. It's not the nail's
What
fault.
was the first part that you just said?
If you
Before?
hit your thumb with a
No,
hammer,
no,
what?
not the hammer part. Before that, the first half of it,
We
prior
keep
to the
feeding the
hammer.
monster. We keep feeding the
Okay,
monster.
let me address that. So obviously, I agree that we keep feeding the monster because that's in fact what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see, because you may say that rationally, and it's rational. You know, if there's a product that's done you wrong, like, oh, these people are a total ripoff, you just cut them off. But behind you, you have 100 to 300 to 1,000 people dying to give them their money to
I
buy that
understand that.
crap product.
I understand that.
So,
I do
well, you get the
understand
point
that.
of that.
I do understand that.
So
And
the
one
monster
person,
feeding,
but
the monster feeding that you're saying
mhm.
is out of our control in
No,
that respect.
the collective feeding of the monster is out of our control, but our
Yeah.
individual feeding of the monster is 100% our choice. I don't take an activist view on any of this stuff. I don't call up companies or send them emails saying, I'm never going to buy your products because you advertise on this network. I don't do that. It's not my style. I don't base my purchases on any kind of a commercial that I see for said things. You know, I base it on what I like. I buy one kind of macaroni and cheese because I like that macaroni and cheese. I don't care whose TV show they advertise on. Okay. Personally, I prefer my wife's homemade macaroni and cheese while we're talking about it, but she can't always do that. So I'm happy to buy this certain brand, but I will give them lower ratings by not participating. I
Okay,
don't participate.
we have
So
talked
I'm
about
not
that.
I'm not saying unplug. I'm just saying be selective.
Okay, so we have talked about that before,
Mm-hmm.
and in fact, we've talked about that before with some buddies. I will. I, a few weeks ago, or a week ago, or something like that, I asked you a question,
Mm-hmm.
and I had asked you, Mark,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that you are brainwashed? I asked you, and do you remember the answer you gave me?
Yeah, I said no, I don't think I am.
You said, well, you said, I don't know that anybody would say
Yeah,
that
I
they
don't know
are.
that anybody would say that they are. Yeah, I do
Right.
remember saying that.
And then I gave you my answer to
Mm-hmm.
that very same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what, if you remember?
You said you think everybody is to a point
No,
or to
I,
a certain level.
no, I said, Well, I do think that actually, but I said I know
Oh,
I'm brainwashed,
okay.
and
Yeah,
so
we got into a long discussion about splitting hairs and everything else, but yeah,
well, it's not a splitting hairs thing.
I'm trying to think of the
No,
word.
did we? Oh, there was something else we got into, but that's
Yeah,
not to do with this.
right.
Well, I don't even remember what we followed up on that, but whatever. So here's the thing that
Semantics. That's the word I was trying to say. I couldn't
well,
think of
this
the word.
wasn't semantics. The question was
Right. I
this
understand.
particular thing has to do with this thing, whatever
Mm,
semantics put to the side. The point is that nobody in their right mind, generally speaking, would everybody thinks they calculate things out to the best of their ability, but I
mhm.
believe that that's absolutely not true. um, that they do to their best of their ability, but that's not good enough. We live in a society where everything we've talked about tonight
Mhm.
and add 1,000,001 things,
Right.
where there's narratives being propagated. And like you said before, we go to the things that we like,
Mhm.
but it's all, and we don't challenge ourselves. We go to the information that
Right.
confirms what we believe, which is kind of roundabout what you were suggesting with that, at least to one degree. Um, I will say that I think there's so many layers in this cake of life that, and these power brokers have built so many different narratives and different, selling points and ideas and whatnot, that everything's like a box and a box and a box and a box. So you can, in my opinion, this is now opinion territory.
Okay.
That's why I said I believe that I am. I believe that I can have glimpses of clarity in certain areas at certain times, glimpses of clarity in the fog haze of this world. And I think that the reason that nothing ever gets properly resolved, not that anything ever will, because that's just humanity rolling on, I think that that has to do with it. There's a lot of lying at many levels, and then
Mhm.
there's competing, vibing, competition for ideas, and this idea is going to serve me well. The other guy, no, my idea is going to serve me well, and so there's all the, it's like a huge complicated maze, and we may get clarity in certain sections, but I do not want to ever, or I think I don't want to ever fool myself enough to think that I am that clever, that I am completely clear at what is going on everywhere around, because there's a lot of layers to it and complications down to the individual, level. So that's why I said that. But this whole thing about what we see in the media and these, I do think that a lot of people see these as instruments that these powerful people use to sway population,
Sure.
you know and I think that most people, like we said in the beginning, simply follow along because they don't have time for it. I don't know, in many cases it's going to be a cop out because they want to believe what they want to believe, but I think that a lot of people just simply don't have, like, they have their family life, this and that, and they're not thinking about
They're not interested.
right there, exactly. And so because of that, these huge corporations and that want to sell us on this and this and that, they have a pretty serious advantage unless they do something, so like unless
And
they kill like 1,000 dolphins and like
but they do
straight
that
up.
every day. They do that every day.
But like, let's say it
Mhm.
breaks loose, and they stuff this whale with Big Macs and big and McDonald's is, just, if sometimes clarity comes in such an overwhelming way on one subject that people cut it straight out. But they have so much, and when I mean
Well,
they, I just mean people that utilize, that are in this
mm,
marketing world, just these power brokers, not the common everyday,
but
normal guy.
do you remember what I said to you? How why I think I'm not brainwashed? Because I don't play the game. I don't buy what they're selling. I cannot tell you the last time I sat down and watched a newscast by anybody, local, international, anything. I don't play their game. I don't buy what they're selling. I don't consume their product. I don't go to their YouTube channels. I have their YouTube channels blocked. I don't want to see the crap that they're selling
Yeah,
because
but
I
you were
don't believe them.
yeah,
And,
okay, so I get
and there
so
are and there are more people like me than you would imagine.
right, but here's the thing, Mark, and I
Uh,
understand that. Here's the thing. Well, go ahead, but I just
however, I don't stay ignorant. I
okay.
do go to various sources online and look at stuff and
Okay.
research stuff. But I don't want the dude on the ALBQ7 channel news telling me their filtered version of the volcano in the islands. You know, I want to go to the sites, the U.S. Geological Survey. I want to see their cams and see what's going on the islands. I want to look at several different sources, their reports on what's happened in the islands. Have any cities been evacuated? Has anybody been injured? I want to know that way. I'll do my own research. Thank you very much. And I'm never going to trust any one source. I'm going to go to various sources. But if I'm not interested in a truck that overturned in Michigan, I'm not going to take the time to look into it. It's sad that it happened, but it's not something that affects me or that perks my interest. And I don't want to hear some reporter's version of what he thinks happened when it turns out he's going to be wrong in 6 months. The guy wasn't drunk. He had a violent reaction to a drug that he took or didn't take, you know. So, what I'm saying is, I have unplugged from the mass media as much as possible. I have to stay involved in some of it to stay in communication with friends and family. But if I had other ways of doing that, if I had other ways of broadcasting, I wouldn't be on YouTube.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
well,
be on Facebook. I
I'll
wouldn't be
say
on the social media outlets that I'm on.
I'll just say I'll just say that all that you said, that's a thorough, when you want to investigate something, and I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, you know, um, at the age that we are
Mm-hmm.
and decisions that we've taken today, a week ago,
Mm-hmm.
a year ago, in regards to this that you're saying,
Uh-huh.
a month ago, 2 years ago, whatever the time frame is,
Mm-hmm.
you've lived a whole life, and from the inception, from the beginning to this point, okay, there's there's a whole world that's already been set up with ideas
Mm-hmm.
that have been, you know,
Sure.
bought and paid for and put into place as we've traveled, the world. So my point is, you know, there's a lot of things that we agree to.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say me. There's a lot of things that I agree to that the decision has been made for me
Yeah.
by society at large and that mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying I'm gonna go against it or not. Like I'm a traditional guy in many ways. So at the same time, I'm okay. But I do recognize that there's a lot of layers to the cake, and
Sure.
not all of it is meant for the empowerment of me as an individual and to think freely without obstacles. No,
Sure. No, no,
that's not
no.
the case. So
There
that's
will always
kind of
be
like
obstacles.
that's kind of like the point of the brainwashing thing, as opposed to at the moment. So at the moment now, I agree. If you're presented with something, you're going to be, and you're interested in it, you're going to go ahead and splice it up and see and make sure. So yeah, so I understand that. But
Yeah.
I was saying, you know
You you were
in the entirety of it.
you were talking about being presented with information without obstacles. I have found, and it took me a long time to understand this, that the biggest obstacle most of us is ever going to face is ourselves. And whether that be through what we perceive as our situation or fear or physical limitations
Mental
or
limitations.
mental limitations, that I mean, everybody has their own story. Okay. But I still find that more often than not, the biggest obstacle we're ever going to face is ourselves. So I'm willing to do the time, I'm willing to do the research if the story interests me. But if it doesn't, I'm not going to fill my head up with a bunch of useless stuff that I really don't care about.
Well, let me ask you
I
this.
really don't care about celebrity gossip, so I'm not watching the Entertainment Network.
Let me ask you this.
Okay,
Why is it important
mhm.
for you to whatever it is that you're interested in to know, is it important to you for you to know the truth of a thing?
Well, first of all, I want to see, is it true or is this something somebody made up?
But why is that important to you?
I don't know, because maybe it interests me. It's hard to say. I can't give you a general answer on that. It's going to
The
depend on the
notion
story.
the notion that you, and by the way, I agree that you
Mhm.
want, and I want to know the truth, but the notion that you're intent on that,
Mhm.
that um
Well,
is not the, well, let me
go
say,
ahead.
dude, the notion that you're intent on that is not the, not everyone is intent on truth or
Oh,
anything. Not,
and
they're not intent
I
on that.
acknowledge that, and that's what I said that's what I meant when I said earlier that they're just not interested. Most
Yeah.
people are just not interested in doing that for themselves. They want it wrapped up with a bow and handed to them, but they don't realize that along with the facts, as these people want you to know them, they're not just being told the story, they're being told what to think of the story and how to think of the story and how to feel about the story without ever even knowing about it.
And
And
how
I
to
just choose,
act.
yeah, and I just choose not to partake. So, I'll give you an example. You're talking about what makes me so intent. It depends on what the story is. You remember I told you the story about the island between Canada and Greenland, where they keep swapping the flag and putting up different signs and trading bottles of booze because the border kind of goes through. I saw that as a meme on Facebook posted by our buddy and longtime viewer, Rick French. He posted that meme, and I thought, that sounds so goofy. There has to be some truth to it. So I looked it up, and sure enough, there is. And that's how I found the story to tell you about it. So it's it's maybe something like that, or maybe Linda will tell me, "Did you hear what happened in such and such city today?" No, what happened? Well, this happened. I'm like, oh crap! So I'll go look for it, to find it. But I'm not gonna sit there and just absorb a bunch of stuff like I used to. And believe me, I know what I'm talking about. I used to do it. I was that guy. I had opinion on everything, and you better listen to it. Didn't you get the memo? Don't you know how important I am? You need to hear my opinion, whether you want to hear it or not. And I just decided I don't want to be that person anymore. So I unplugged, I tuned out, and I go to my own sources. And I don't believe any single source. I go to several places I like, places I don't like, and then I'll collate and process myself. I'm not always right. But if I look at two sources with opposing views, somewhere in the middle, you'll find a common ground. And if I need to pursue further, I will. If I don't think I need to pursue further, or I'm just not interested, I won't. But I refuse to buy what they're selling. That's my point.
Even when I'm wrong, I'm right.
Yeah. And that's the truth. And even when you're wrong, you're right. And when you're right, you're wrong. So welcome to the human race, man. I mean, it's all opinion. Just remember, dog bites man is not a story. Man bites dog. That's a story.
Yeah, I guess I'll end my part with this because let's wrap it up
We
because we
need
have
to,
a
yeah, we
second.
need to wrap it up. And this is what I mean when I said you get all the easy edits.
But I just want to mention this one thing. My personality, the way I've always been, and I'm not gonna get into all the stories of it, but I always I don't want to take from anybody. I'm very cautious, instinctly, instinctly, instinctually,
Instinctively, yeah.
instinctively. Oh man,
Between the two of us, I know. It's just I can't think of the word 3/4 of the time.
Ringo Starr used to do that, and he came up with a bunch of the best Beatles titles ever. Well, so I don't want to in position if it's on a conversational thing. I want to press ideas and stuff, and I find that exercise good. But as far as compelling others and that kind of thing, I find it grotesque against my personal um just nature and stuff, to the point of self injury, you
Mhm.
know, just a bunch of stuff, but whatever. So the point is, and I'm not trying to pat myself, I'm just saying that it's just part of my personality. I don't want to damn, I don't want nothing from any, anything that, nothing that's mine. I don't want to take it. I don't, it's
Yeah,
just
I
my
get it.
attitude, maybe it's upbringing, my whatever. But a few years ago, came up, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, older gentleman, and the conversation was around, you know, I guess my allowing for self injury in a relationship, or in a dealing or what, in a deal or whatever, just in general, um, in order to appease or be agreeable,
Mhm.
or to not create waves, and say, oh well, it's not, you know but he said to me, well, in this life, this is what I tell people that are stubborn. I tell them, these are my rules, that I live by. This is my truth. He said, my truth. And when he said my truth, it was very troublesome for me, because I I don't like the concept of my truth, because that excludes a truth. It kind of, it's my
Yeah,
truth,
it's an oxymoron. There's no such thing, but go on.
right? In the way I was thinking, I couldn't accept that. Like I didn't, but it
And
was
nor
actually,
should you.
brilliant,
Mm.
because what he was telling me wasn't that his truth is the ultimate truth. He's saying that when someone approaches and wants dealings with you, this is your line drawn, and this you must respect. If not, we don't deal. In the context of what I was talking with him about, and it has, after the fact, I kept it in that regard. Um, I guess this is a little bit too, like, boxed and complex, but the idea of saying, "Hey, this is the line, and this is where I stand," kind of like the Indian out in the middle of somewhere in the plains, and people from the colonies coming out and saying, okay, so listen, sign this paper and we'll go ahead and do this and this land over here and stuff. And the Indian's like, oh, this is my land. I don't want no paper. I don't want no other. Or people, the frontiers people, they come, there's oil here, or whatever, and they come and they say, we're going to go ahead and purchase this land. And the guy with the shotgun and his old lady, and they say, no, get off my land. This is mine. So that line drawn, that concept is what he was trying to impart. He was, I believe, I hope he was, because at least that's what I got from it, is that, you know, at some point you have to realize what you stand for. And for me, what you stand for and what you don't stand for. And I, and and that's it. That's a self, and I found that very useful. So when I see things at a base level, as far as philosophically, and I see things that cross the line, maybe not directed at me, but I see it out in the ether, I'm like, that crosses the line. That over there doesn't cross the line. Oh, but that does over there. And so base principles, and stuff like that. Whatever. I think that somewhere in there, there's something of a semblance of reasoning, but that's it. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need to wrap it up. We went way over, and I got to edit this to under an hour. Remember?
Well, I could do this. I could do this quicker than I did the previous thing, folks. We go live every Tuesday at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 West Coast time, and we have a website called Trampled Underfoot podcast.com. You can go ahead and check out our past episodes there by pressing the Wayback Machine button. And we also have a Facebook page with the same name, Trampled Underfoot Podcast on Facebook. And by the way, we're also sponsored by
Steve Nealon at Harneal Media, your one-stop website shop. He sponsors trampledunderfootpodcast.com, and he does a masterful job at it. Look, folks, if you're looking to increase your web presence, you want a website, you want to create a web store to sell your products, sell your services, or maybe you want to create merch. You'd like to start putting out t-shirts, hats, coffee mugs, etc., etc. Steve is your man. With Harneal Media, you're not talking to some faceless, nameless entity with a headset and an attitude. You're speaking with one man, the man, Steve himself. He is Harneal Media. So, Harneal Media, sponsor of TrampledUnderfootPodcast.com. Reach out to him at HARNEAL media.com.
You just said that, and everything you said, you're not speaking to a faceless this and with headphones on. You describe, I can picture everything you said. I could picture Steve sitting there in his chair in his office with his computers and his hat and the thing. Pictured Steve perfectly.
But you have to agree, he doesn't have a headset and an attitude.
No, he wears he doesn't. He wears
he wears headphones, but he doesn't have a headset and an attitude.
Oh, okay. I didn't picture him with like in a cubicle with like a
exactly.
Okay, but
well,
everything
see,
you said,
and the proof of the pudding is in its tasting, and you just gave a great testimonial, because laid back kind of guy. Yeah, he wears headphones because he doesn't have speakers in the room, but he's not sitting in a cubicle in his suit. He's sitting in his home office getting it done. Laid back guy with an excellent service.
That's it. All right. I think it was excellent.
Most of it will get edited out, but what the heck?
Yeah. Listen, we're gonna take off. You guys have a great week. And by the way, we're not gonna have a show this coming week. Possibly.
Yep. I was going to say that after we went over to the what you call it. But that's okay.
All right. So we're out of here. Have a safe week. We'll catch you the week after. Peace out.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Programming note. This Friday I go in to have a bunch of dental work done, so we probably will not do a live recording next week, because I probably physically won't be able to talk. So that's just a programming note for all y'all out there in the chat. We'll see what happens. Let's see. So that will be the 14th. There probably won't be an episode. I won't say definitely yes, and I won't say definitely no. That we'll see about the 21st. I should be back up to snuff by the 21st, but probably not the 14th. So I don't think that's going to be enough time for the jaws to heal. We'll see what happens, though. Okay, you ready to get into comments and questions and stuff?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Let's see. Scroll down here and find some. Go on here. First of all, I have to say, Jim Dockerel, our longtime buddy, sent me a care package from the Great White North. He sent me some Canadian candies, and I am just having an absolute ball. He sent me 4 of these 10 packs of the Coffee Crisp chocolate bars that I love so much. And Jim, I still have 3 of these packages unopened. He also sent me 2 nice big bags of Maltesers because he knows these are the bomb. If you have never had these, oh my God, run. Don't walk to the nearest store that sells them and get some. Jim, you're a prince among princesses. Princesses? Yes, you're a prince among princesses. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. He just went up about 52,000 steps in stature in my book. Thank you, Jim.
Of course.
Okay, let's see. Let's get in here. Speaking of Jim, here he is. The problem with the internet is that every voice can be heard, and the loudest one may not be the best or even a good idea. Agreed. And that was the whole thing that I was getting at, was that everybody has a voice, but not everybody has equal skin in the game. So
I disagree with that.
how so?
So put up the thing again, the quote.
There you go.
The problem with the internet is that every voice can be heard, and the loudest one may not be the best or even a good idea. I can agree that the loudest one may not be the best. Um, well, you know what? To me, it. I think that I personally think that whatever voice and whatever, as long as there's no suppression, that's fine. Whatever as long as there's no suppression, that's
Yeah.
my key.
Well, let me be clear on that. I don't want suppression either. What I want is responsibility, because it's like you said before. In the early days of the internet, it was like the Wild West. Well, it still is. The problem is we've graduated from the cap and ball pistol to selective fire weapons with hollow point ammunition, to where it's not however many shots you had in the revolver. We're putting link belts in these things, locking and loading and going on full automatic, and just spraying everything we can as we go.
But give me an example, because I mean,
Well, I've given several examples. What I'm getting at is the Wild West attitude about everybody could say anything that they wanted to, but we were all still kind of feeling our way about the internet because it was brand new and we didn't know the rules. We didn't know if there were rules. Well, now we know we've set up a society where in many cases there are no rules. So people are more daring and they're more willing to go way over the line because they don't really have any skin in the game. You know, there haven't been the lawsuits, is what I'm getting at. Only when it comes to actual criminal acts do anybody ever face responsibility, you know,
I
for
guess
their
I'd have
actions.
to see a case by case. Obviously,
Yeah.
I stand by, if it's fraud,
Mm-hmm.
theft,
Mm-hmm.
violence, and when I mean violence is the threat, not you're watching a shoot 'em up
Yeah.
movie, or
Yeah.
this. I mean, like a threat from one individual to another, or a group of things that are already codified in
Right.
our system. That's
Right.
where I draw the line on that. But everything else beyond what we have codified, and go for broke. And if you want to lie and you damage someone, what we talked about earlier should apply.
Yeah, and that's where I was getting at. And
Yeah.
I think that's what Jim is saying, is that just because it's the loudest voice doesn't mean that it's the best voice.
I don't know if that's what Jim meant or not, because what I'm
Well, it's what he
reading
says
there,
right there. The loudest one may not be the best.
right? But does that? But so that's okay. So the problem is that I read that broadly, which is a broad reading. What
Mhm.
does what you know? Maybe the loud. maybe all things being equal, whatever comes up and is the captain of the
Well,
ship, is because
well,
they were, they were the best at it. Now if they do it by fraud and so on and so forth, then that's
well, but
so
wait
that's
here,
why I qualified it.
that's why he's saying may. Just
Right.
because you have the biggest platform doesn't mean you're the best source of information.
No, yeah, it doesn't.
You know, that's
But the
and
good
I
idea
don't
part,
and I
the,
don't think that that's contentious. Well, it
but
may not be a good idea.
but the good idea, I don't, if not for fraud and so on and so forth and so on and so forth, the good idea part for me is irrelevant. So if somebody, lizard people mania, and they're doing that and people are like, lizard people mania, they love it and
No,
stuff, that's total crock, right? I
how,
mean, we've done
how
it for fun, but that's a total crock topic. But if it happens to be overreaching and so on, so be it, as
okay,
long as they're not doing bad stuff.
okay. How about the knockout game?
That's covered in what I said already.
Okay, all
If
right.
it's
Well,
fraud,
that's what I'm get.
violence,
That's what I'm getting at.
yeah.
The loudest voices were scream at the time were screaming about that.
Well,
You know,
if it's
so
that,
that's what I'm getting at. If that's
yeah.
not even a good idea.
Yeah, I guess
So
I
let's
would have
see.
said I would have said, as
Yeah.
long as it falls within the parameters of these codified things that we do not that we think are not human and polite and nice and moral and ethical,
Mhm.
then
Yeah.
the law
Okay.
applies. But other than that,
Well,
go hog wild.
my whole thing was the legal system, and it should be leveled. That was my whole thing, because right now you and I don't have many options. You
Minus
know.
politics. So if politics is willing to lie,
Well,
have at it, but let the media and alternate medias also, you can't go ahead and tamp down, let information flow is my thing.
well, I agree with that right there.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Rick French addresses it. News used to come from only a handful of very reliable sources that policed themselves to a very high standard. Now news is whatever anyone with a keyboard and internet access makes it to be. That part is true. That part is true. You and I could put up a news site tomorrow. And shit, we could do it tonight. Did I just say that? I said that. We could do it tonight. And in our minds, because we are now members of the press, we're protected by the First Amendment and we can say whatever we want. Well, it doesn't work that way, cousin. There are still libel and slander laws that you have to worry about, whether there's malice or not. But as far as news used to come from only a handful of very reliable sources that policed themselves to a very high standard, there has never been a golden age of the media. There has never been a golden age where personal biases didn't enter into a news story. There is no such thing as a neutral press. There has never been any such thing as a neutral press. Every press outlet has to have an angle to get you to listen to them instead of the next guy. And they're going to do that by sensationalism, propaganda, or any number of other ways. Bandwagon. I mean, they have any number of ways of getting you to use them as a source instead of the next guy. So, and I know that from trying to work in the press. I know that from at a young age, being an intern at two big newspapers, and I saw how those newspapers were run, and I was sat in on those editorial meetings. Never forget, never forget. I don't care what your source is. You are only hearing what they want to tell you. So, sorry, I went off on that tangent again.
No, you know what I connect in a roundabout way, that conversation we once had with Greg, and we were talking about things that they sell that we can't help ourselves and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
No, better yet, we mentioned that Nigerian prince situation where they send out emails, and I was saying, you know, who the heck will fall for this and that? And then one of you guys mentioned the fact that it's not catering. I think it was Greg that had said it. I'm not sure, but he said they're not catering to people that pick it up easily because it's so dumb. They're looking to make it so exaggerated that they know that the people that pick up on it um, are so like dumb that they're gonna fall for it. So that's why they make it so stupid and ridiculous. And yet there is a contingency out there that, and so I look at the media like that.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
look at it like.
They know with 300 million people in the US, not all of them are going to watch them. They know that. What they're looking to do is preach to the choir. Because there's a certain percentage of the population that will not like them and will not believe them no matter what they do.
No matter what they say.
There's also a certain percentage of the population that really doesn't know, and they may jump around from news channel to news channel trying to, figure out. They haven't really found a quote unquote home yet. But there is that one hardcore group that's going to believe everything they tell them. Those are the people they're talking to.
There's a difference between, let's say, let me see if I can do this right. There's a difference between the news saying, and on the corner of 5th and Tanzania, there was a, try finding that on the map, on the corner of 5th and Tanzania, there was a fire outbreak and so on and so. They're just reporting that there was a fire outbreak. Now,
Exactly.
if they say, and Mr. Bob Wheeler, politician for the district, blah, 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 he's involved in this, and that, and so on and so forth. And but this other politician, they portray him as nice, and then the other one, there's dealings going on there. And it may be true that Mr. Bob Wheeler is a wheeler and dealer, but they have the situation where they are swaying and bumping and catering to whatever their leanings are, whereas something actual like a fire, or there's no more food in the groceries, there's no more toilet paper because we've got the great outage of those things, are more like practical and down to. But when it comes to sort of a narrative shifting with personalities, you can sort of pick that out, and a lot of people do, they kind of just accept it, and then that guy's a bad guy now, but maybe he's not a bad guy, but they're framing it that way. So
exactly, but it's more subtle than that. Let's go down to
an example.
but you're right, but I'm just you're absolutely right, but let me back up a little bit and step away from that. Let's say Bob Wheeler was in Washington and he has a good alibi. It's even more subtle than that, because their live reporter can be out there in front of the camera talking about the fire and explaining, I'm here at 5th and Tanzania, and we have 7 engines that are on the scene, and these firefighters are attempting to put it out. They've evacuated this circle. Or they can have the single reporter with the action cam bouncing it around and speaking like this. We're here at 5th and Tanzania, where 7 engines are involved with trying to extinguish this conflagration that has decimated this corner in this peaceful intersection.
Right.
It's all on how they want to say it. And the bouncing action cam sexies it up and makes it look a lot more chaotic than it actually is.
Yeah.
So that's a bias in and of itself. And which video is going to make it to YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok? Not the reporter standing there with the microphone being nice and calm. It's going to be the bouncy camera, because that's action and that's impact. And suddenly that news source becomes a little bit more prestigious,
sexy,
than the reporter out there calmly with the tripod.
The day, and it's already coming past, but the day that, and it already came and went, the day that a reporter and a news outlet can film people bashing each other upside the head with flames and fire and rubber bullets and smoke and this and that, and call it a peaceful protest. and the people watching it just go in and say peaceful protest, peaceful protest. The day that that happened and it already came and went, you know, you know, anybody out there that says no, 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 it was a peaceful protest. It's a total brain job.
Uh-huh. And
It's a total brain job.
that's why news organizations around the world fear social media. That's why they're in competition with social media.
Yeah,
And in some cases, why they're on social media. Because let's remember that um, when the Cuban uprising happened back in July, we weren't watching the networks to see what was going on. We were on YouTube.
yeah.
We were on other social media outlets, not looking for the ace reporter out there standing in front of the camera or the sexy cam doing this. We were looking for the two guys who live on the street that the protests are going down the road with their phones broadcasting live. That's who we were looking for. And that's why these news organizations despise outside sources, because they had it locked up. Rick is 100% correct on that score. The news used to come from only a handful of, I'm going to take out your words. I'm sorry, Rick. I'm going to paraphrase a handful of sources. How reliable they were was up for argument. Okay, we can talk about that on another show.
They
But
got the cartoons on Saturday right in the order that they
well,
came out.
yes, but what cartoons didn't you see? So you know, but yes, you're right. They came from only a handful of sources, and I'm not totally cynical, Rick. In many cases, you are correct. They did police themselves to a high standard, but there was a pride in it back then. Today, we say it ourselves. Why should I trust you? You're a reporter. Reporters are seen in many, many cases to be just to the side of lawyers and car salesmen, used car salesmen, and that not the lowest form of life on the planet, but close to it. And why did they develop that reputation? It's because we, the people, have been burned too many times. You know, if they would report the story, as you said, that's one thing. But don't tell me what I'm supposed to think about that story. Don't put it in such a way that's going to evoke an emotion in me pointed in the direction you want it to go in, because that's not news, that's opinion.
Vote yes on propaganda on propaganda on Proposition 8. It'll
Uh-huh.
make you appreciate little slogans. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. The big news organizations are now owned by big corporate entities. Most of them, yes. They used to be owned by networks, primarily the big three. Yes, corporates reflect the morals and agenda of their owners. Not necessarily, because most corporations delegate that authority, and the heads of news organizations can get the axe. But mainly that's based on the bottom line. If the news organization is bringing in revenue, leave them alone.
I'm gonna have
Um,
to agree with Rick on this one. I
but
have to agree with
okay,
Rick on
but my point is there are a few of the big news organizations that are still not owned by corporations. They're private companies. They're not traded on the stock market. They're not a part of the corporation.
but for the most part,
But
no,
for the most part, yes.
bring his thing back up,
Oh, okay.
please. Um, for the most part, I can generally agree with big organizations because it's such an obvious thing. I mean, you could look it up on it's there. Although there are some that are not, that are still, but
Mhm,
just the main branches are totally. But the
mhm,
part about um, corporate reflects the morals and agendas of their owners. I'm going to have to say that all you have to do is this is one example is you go to the Project Veritas site and you'll see or their YouTube or whatever, and you can see where they they actually get into the corporate calls, and or they record people at a dinner or whatever, and these people are talking about how they do the news, which is essentially
Okay.
what you saw when you were there in the news thing.
Mhm.
But
But
this is
that's not the ownership, is what I'm
but
saying.
but this is no. What do you mean it's not the ownership? Yeah,
That's
it's the
not the
owners.
ownership. No, a lot of
What do you
those
mean
are
no?
in a lot of those people are in elected positions. CEOs don't own the company. News directors don't own the company. In corporations like this, the owners are the stockholders. They're elected positions within the organizations, and a CEO can be taken out and replaced if they're
Okay,
voted out or voted in.
okay, but um, so so the dude that I don't know the guy's name, the dude that heads up CNN,
Mhm,
they've been recorded, and the
mhm.
stuff that they say, okay, now for next week we're going to drop this agenda, now we're going to go to this
Okay,
one, we're talking about like the big headlines and stuff.
right.
They're choosing what to do, and it
Yes,
all aligns with a certain
yes,
direction.
yes.
And so they what he said reflects morals and agendas. I think that
Okay,
that I agree with what he wrote there. You can be specific about it, and
yeah.
that's
I,
good, but
I'm
I agree with what he wrote.
I'm going to put it down to semantics. That I think owners is the wrong word.
Okay.
Management or leadership, I think, is the correct word, because you're absolutely right about the CEO of CNN. But again, he's the CEO. He's not the owner. The
Yeah,
owner
but the
is
key
the
here is not that
stockholders.
that bit that you're
He's the
picking
head.
out. That but
Mhm.
that bit that you're picking out is important in an administrative thing, and I get it. But the idea that people that are pulling strings, whatever level
Right. The
you don't want to use
management,
this word.
I agree.
What he's saying there is a
Yes.
solid thing.
And I agree. And that's exact. And I have experience to back that up. You're absolutely right on that score. It's the editorial board, and it's the director, the news director, it's the CEO that allows it to happen with or without his knowledge. Now, CNN CEO is caught. It is with his knowledge. And in fact, by his direction in a number of cases. But that's not the ownership. That's the only thing that I'm taking issue with, is the use of that word. But yes, all news organizations are run that way, and that is the problem. That's what caused my disenchantment with the entire career field, the entire subject. And that's what made me as cynical about the press, whether it be print media or news, television, radio, whatever. That's what turned me against it. Was I saw that in action. When you've got an editor looking at a news story in his hand from a veteran reporter who's been with the paper for 20 years, throw it in his face and say, this is a bunch of crap. You get me something on this guy. That tells me they're not interested in the truth. They're interested in their agenda. That's a fact.
And that's
I
been
will
going on for a long time.
That's why I say there is no golden age of the press. Every press, no matter how neutral or impartial they say they are, that is a bald faced lie. They are not neutral. They are not impartial. They have an agenda. And that
If that,
agenda
if
is to get you to read their paper or watch their broadcast or visit their website.
if that's the case, which I don't doubt, I kind of agree with that. If that's the case, fine, so be it. As long as there's no allow for the varying
Mhm.
slants
We
to
do.
exist parallel.
We do.
Then
We
that's it.
do. And
Then that's
they
it.
and they again, they wrap themselves in the flag, and they hide behind the First Amendment. And that's how they escape a lot of responsibility for some of the stuff they do.
As long as they're surviving. So if you're gonna lie over here because you have this idea, and you're
Mhm,
gonna lie over here and you have this idea, and then you have minions that
mhm.
are backing it up, but then you have alternate people that are saying different things in between. I say that is better than not having.
You're
Yeah,
absolutely right. It
yeah.
is. It is.
Just as a precaution,
Mhm.
we wouldn't want one organization telling everybody what's what. he wouldn't want that.
I am going to go out on a limb and use a very, very, very unpopular opinion. Jim Dockrell says, "Don't you miss Walter Cronkite now?" No, he was one of the worst. He was excellent at licking his finger and sticking it up in the air to see which way the wind blow. The reason Johnson gave up in Vietnam was the fact he said flat out, "When I lost Cronkite, I lost the war." Cronkite stood in front of everybody after the Tet Offensive and lied his tail off and admitted it years later in various interviews. Lied his tail off and turned the American public against the Vietnam War. Now, that's just one example. He's been caught out several times. I do not miss Walter Cronkite. He was one of the worst. He had a personal agenda, a very big personal agenda. Let's see. Let's see.
Greg never
says,
anything. Okay.
Says, "I trust TikTok for everything," as most people do. I still understand nothing about TikTok, Twitter, or Instagram. And you know what, Rick? You're a better person for it. I mean, I just don't believe in feeding the monster. I just don't participate. Oh, this is on a personal note. Jim said I better share them with Linda. She's given me carte blanche on the coffee crisps. She doesn't like coffee crisp. She's tried them. She doesn't like them. And as she says here, the first bag of Maltesers is gone. And we basically split it 50-50. I opened it and put it out there in the living room where we could both swing through and partake. Yeah, she's right. No, I'd better share them with him. Okay, let's see here. Jim, screaming it over the top of everything else does not make it true. Absolutely. And Eli and I have had the discussion before about the loudest 1% getting all the press. And that's, to me, my opinion, that's about it. That's really what it is the loudest. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. So the loudest 1% gets all the attention.
I don't know. Is it loud? Are you talking about people or organizations?
Yeah.
Like human being, like individuals?
Yeah.
The loudest.
More into if you watch Twitter, like you said, it's evil, it's vile, and it is. I post very little over there. I'm just over there because I'm following certain people over there, certain things I like to listen to, like Bad Obsession Motorsports and Wartooth Designs, our friend Sarah,
You're
stuff like
such a
that.
you're such a
Name
you're
dropper,
such a trendy internet user.
No,
You're following all the motorsport
dude,
this and the this and that.
half the time I'm a caveman with a calculator. I used to think I was good at this stuff, but now I now know why my dad used to get my granddaughter to show him how to text. It's because, how does this doohickey work? That kind of thing.
Let me tell you, I get because of what happened a few months back with the Cuba thing, and I was doing a lot of posting and this. I did some posting and this and that, and I posted something on Bernie Sanders thing, and it got picked up by newspapers. And you can find it using DuckDuckGo. For some reason, going through the Googles, it's down the list. But if you go through, it's an article on Bernie Sanders, and my quote comes out. He says, and since my Twitter is still from back in the day of I'm a musician, right? Which I guess I still am. I just don't practice. It said Miami musician Eloy Escojedo said the following quote, and it says, yeah, if you want to help, I said something to because he was saying that Cuba is okay and this and that, people are freaking croaking, it's just horrible, and he's got the same attitude because he just wants he's headshot, it's just total bull. But I said, if you want to help, go ahead and share the videos that they're publicizing
Publishing.
thank you. Yeah, I'm going Ringo Starr all the way. Publishing on the island out to the world. Go ahead and share those so people can see what they're going through. And they found it relevant. My reply to him
Mhm.
found it relevant enough to put me in those newspapers. It came out in a few newspapers as part of the thing, which I found amusing. I didn't expect it. I found it amusing as hell.
Yeah.
He
It's,
never did. He never did respond. He never said something like, "You
of
know
course
what?
not.
I'm such a caring person, and you're right. We should
Of course
share
not.
more information." No, they don't want more information.
Dude,
They want their way of information.
exactly. And you know as well as I do, he doesn't even know he has a Twitter account. That's
Yeah,
somebody in
it's
his office running that.
his people.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Steve Nealon says, I'm not sponsoring a news website. Well, there went that idea. Greg never said anything intelligent. Well, you just said that right there. That was very intelligent.
No, I find trouble with it.
I do
I
too.
would have said if you can you put it up one more time? Just
Sure.
I see. He said Greg never said anything intelligent, and you said that, yeah, that's intelligent. No, Greg and Mark, I would say never ever ever. If he would have said never ever 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 said anything intelligent with an exclamation mark and a little smiley emoji, then I would have said, damn, Greg, you finally did a masterpiece sentence. But he's saying
three,
that in
but three exclamation points and the smiling emoji.
and a little smiley face with the tongue sticking out, you
Oh,
know.
okay. All right. All right.
But I think he said that because I had mentioned that one bit where we were all he talked about the Nigerian
Yeah.
prince and whatnot. I thought that is a brilliant thing. It's brilliant. You make it so stupid that the only
Uh-huh.
people who are going to click on it are people that are
Well,
simply going to,
well,
fall for it.
it appeals to the two lowest common denominators: greedy and, let's just say, vulnerable. Let's be nice about it and say vulnerable.
It also creates a problem in my mind because it also makes you so one always thinks
Mm-hmm.
generally it's dangerous
Mm-hmm.
because people that don't think this it's a little on the dangerous side. I always think, who's going to fall for this crap, but the truth is that there's a segment of the population, if you taken
Mm-hmm.
as a pie chart, that will definitely. And that idea,
Mm-hmm.
obviously I know it instinctually, but it's not my natural go-to. I'm always thinking that generally nobody's going to fall for this crap. Well, the answer is what Greg had meant.
They obviously do,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
if they didn't, these people wouldn't do it. There have to have been enough people to make it worth their while to do it. But then again, even then, this is nothing new. The Nigerian prince thing, it goes all the way back into the 1700s.
How old is this guy?
Well, it's a big family and descendants and what have you.
So they're still poor after like 700 years?
Well,
Damn.
yeah. Let's see. Jim Dockrell says people don't want to hear your opinion. They want to hear their opinion coming out of your mouth. And even then, they will find fault if they just don't like you. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. And I think there's a lot of wisdom there. But some people can't take yes for an answer. And you can agree with them on all counts. And it isn't going to improve your standing any, because they have decided that you're wrong. Even if you say the same things they do. They just don't want to hear it from you. You're just wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Opinion, they want to hear their opinion coming out of your. So if you don't want truth, nobody wins.
Well, see, and that's the thing, because the truth has no agenda. A fact is a fact. It just is. It doesn't try to be right. It doesn't try to be wrong. It just is.
And by truth, to be very careful.
Well,
What I mean is the closest approximation to a reality-based, pointing out a reality-based thing within that conversation. If you can agree to a reality based, everybody involved in that conversation says, okay, this thing, we all agree, we could all be wrong. But the point is that if we use the exercise of the brain and say, okay, this bit works, and we continue, if there was honesty and
Right.
honor in the process, then that's good. But if you're on about conquering people, um, it's unethical just to get your way. That is
Oh,
unethical,
yeah.
in my opinion.
And a lot of things in the press that we see, just constantly is just that, unethical, and it's agenda driven. The 2011, there was a huge earthquake and a tsunami in Japan. Thousands of people lost their lives. Cities were destroyed, wiped out. It was weird and surreal to me because I saw some of that tsunami come through live.
Yeah.
And the cameras, they were using their tsunami warning cameras and everything, and you saw the water coming in and the waves coming in. But it's one of those things where we were so detached. I don't know why I'm saying we. I was so detached from it that I did not equate that wave washing over that car. I didn't even think about, was there anybody in that car? All I know is that wave lifted it up and shoved it into the building next door. I didn't think about were there people on those boats that were now rushing inland. I didn't think about any of that because you couldn't see any people in them. That doesn't mean they weren't there. That ship wasn't just out there floating in the harbor by itself. It was under power. Obviously, there's people in it. But that story came and went within a day or so. And the press focused on the Fukushima plant, the nuclear power plant, because overwhelmingly the press has an anti-nuclear agenda. Any other time, and I'll use Indonesia as an example, they focused on the human element, the loss of life, the tragedy for a couple of weeks. But not so in Japan in 2011. They focused on the sensational.
Yeah.
To detach us even further from the loss of life and the human tragedy that was happening right there and focus it on the nuclear stuff. So, I mean, again, more bias.
And there's no way, last thing, because maybe we should start, but last
Yeah,
thing,
we
there's
should.
also this other thing, okay, where there's a lot of stuff happening at the same time all the time.
Uh-huh.
And that you said about, well, there's actual people in those things, more than likely. I mean, who's manning that boat?
Right.
Somebody was driving that car. I mean, just all these things. Um, as a human being, one individual, and the sheer amount of stuff that happens, wars,
Mm-hmm.
all the stuff that happens, it's too much at the
Yeah.
same time. And it's another reason that it's good to have all these, um, I guess you'd say, smaller,
Yeah.
aggregates of information, because maybe one group is focused on Chinese occurrences and another group is focused on, and whereas a major newspaper will just be focused on what their agenda is, we have all these different. So if I want to learn more about, X, Y, and Z, so it kind of collates
Well,
information out there, even though there's error and lies and whatnot, and but there's also facts coming in. So as a rule of thumb, I think, strongly, that it's good, that we have all these things, even if a lot of the noise is going to be like crap, let's say. I still think that the benefit of having all that outweighs, I think. Now that part I feel that it's true, but maybe it doesn't outweigh, maybe it won't, but I feel that
well,
it's
you do have to wade through more static. to tune in the station, but and that's why I am opposed to any kind of a regulatory agency telling people, no, you can't publish that, or you have to divulge sources, or you have to, you know, we talked about Wikipedia. At least Wikipedia encourages citations. And if you don't have a citation, if you don't have a source that you can prove, they'll put that up in parentheses, citation needed. They're not going to take it down. They're just going to say, nobody has verified this. Take it at your own risk. I think that's a good stance to take. That's fine. They're not saying this is a lie. They're not saying this is truth. They're just saying we can't confirm or deny this, but we're going to let it stand. You be the judge. All I'm getting at is when somebody tells you, you be the judge, make sure that you're making an informed opinion. That's all. Don't believe any one source. Get multiple sources. And remember that you're only hearing what that source chooses to tell you. And it may not be the entire story. It may or may not. I mean, the fire down on 5th in Tanzania, that's a fact. I mean, you can walk out your door and you can look and you can see the smoke, walk a few blocks, you can see the flames. That's happening. That's a fact. But how are those facts presented? I mean, the flames are still raging. It's a little early to say who caused.
If we can extract the flame, if the continuum of the fact that flames are there, that's good. But if they go and create a whole story that's like not around, then now you're starting to create a situation that's not, straight up, news.
And that's when you leave news and get into opinion, when you start to speculate. You start blaming this guy for his shoddy workmanship, or that guy for not putting in fire sprinklers, or this guy over here for approving the construction of that building in the first place, or the founding fathers for taking this land from the Indians. It's now you have gone beyond reporting of the news and you are into agenda and opinion. So,
is Greg saying that he's down with nuclear reactor plants?
No, I think CANDO reactors. I think CANDO.
What does that mean?
I think it may be a Canadian thing. Is that the Canadian Power Company? CANDO. I don't know.
I don't like the idea of nuclear.
That's one of my least favorite.
That's
probably my least favorite because I don't trust it either.
No, but because the thing is, it's so. If it goes on the wrong, if it goes bad,
yeah, exactly.
It's so bad.
I know. And that's my problem with it.
Yeah.
It's something that we think we can control, but as has been proven a couple times already, sometimes that's not the case. And the perfect storm does happen.
Yeah.
We've seen it. Okay. The CANDO reactors are a Canadian design reactor. Okay. All right. Okay. See, you learn something new every day. But you know what? And this is going to seem frivolous, and it is, and trivial. I like that name. CANDO. That's somebody who doesn't take themselves too seriously. I like that name.
Is can derived from Canada, and dew is the radioactive mist that falls down in the morning?
No, that's where they ship all their sewage for treatment. Okay. Well, now we're just getting goofy.
Whatever happened to just pumping out smokestacks of coal and just graying out the skies? That was the good old days. At least with that, you can always just stop the plants and but boy. And they have stuff now, right, to make it a little bit more water vapory as opposed to just.
How dare you? Coal is evil. What's the matter with you? Nah. You know, Steve has a point.
That's not saying much. My reactor design has never failed either. Of course, it's never been built.
Yeah. That's that. I mean, you can't argue with that. You can't argue. See, that's one of those facts. His reactor design has never failed either. Yet
You know what I
always,
do like?
he's got a 100% safety record when you think
You know
about
what
it.
I do like? And I know it's not realistic, at least not for now, but maybe it will be one day. I really like, and don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm crazy for it, but I like solar. I like the idea of solar.
I'm not opposed to it. I like it too. I
You
like it
know,
too. I like it too. I like solar. I like wind. I like hydroelectric. I like geothermal. I like all of them, but I'm not for getting rid of any one over the other
right?
until we have a good replacement for all of them. I mean, should there be more solar? Yes. Should there be more wind? Yes.
You know what I just pictured?
100%.
I pictured Jim sitting on a bicycle, a stationary treadmill type thing, hooked up to like a generator,
Uh-huh.
powering his air, and like imagine one gym per block. You know, they have a
Mhm.
designated, and they have to take turn, and everybody lights up their,
Yeah.
and everybody gets healthy too at the same time.
What I want to know is I want to know why the Saudis or the folks in Dubai or the UAE, the oil rich countries, they're in the desert. Why haven't they started building hydrogen fuel cell power plants for A, power, and B, seawater desalinization? The only exhaust, the only byproduct of a hydrogen fuel cell is water and water vapor. And they're in the middle of the desert, right on salt water. They could use that to power that hydrogen fuel cell and produce clean drinking water. Just one of those things. I don't know. I like hydrogen fuel cells. I like solar. I like wind, all of it. Build more of it. Hydroelectric, I think that, the hydroelectric dams,
Yeah.
we might need to be looking into those even further
How
because
about
our,
butane? You said wind, butane powered eating beans. Well, go ahead.
yeah. Well, there's a lot to be, believe it or not, there are people that are trying to capture methane from big dairy farms to uh, power plants, electrical plants.
You know how many farts that would take?
No, it's not that. It's all
The the
all
poop.
the manure,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
But harvest that methane and use it for, why not? Why not?
I mean,
And and I have my grandparents to blame for this, and then we got to wrap this up. I love, one of my big things is I love taking something that a lot of people would see as a waste product and turning it into a valuable commodity. I like when people do that. When you
yeah.
find a product that somebody else was throwing away because it was a waste product, get it out of here, and somebody else takes that thing and turns it into a valuable commodity that other people need. I like that. Everybody wins that way.
Yeah, it's a cool,
Mhm.
it's a cool thing. It's helping you human. It's a cool thing. I again, the nuclear. The only part about it is
Yeah,
it's
I'm not a fan.
but
I'm not a fan.
it is what it is. But still, it's like something that's not going to go away for a long, long time if it
Well,
gets out into the It's I don't like the idea, but whatever. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
um,
Well, um, Greg, that can be changed. That can be controlled. That's something within our ability to make sure that doesn't happen. You know. So
so
okay,
well, I'd have to see what the geography is, but obviously that would be a problem in his area.
yeah,
But
exactly. I mean, that's a choice. That's a choice that somebody makes, and we can choose not to make that choice. Is what I'm saying.
yeah,
I mean, there's nothing, no law that says that a dam has to go there where it's going to, damage anybody.
Put it on
in
the
that way.
Canadian side, Greg.
You know, just okay, that's not a good candidate. Let's go find another river. You know.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we need to wrap this up, dude. We've gone way, way overboard. And this
Dude,
is what I mean when I say you get all the easy edits, because the last one was, I'm sure, fairly simple. I've got to figure out how to take a half an hour out of that
no,
and
half
make something.
hour.
We got to keep it to an hour, man. And we went an hour and 36 minutes or more.
Yeah, this is
We went crazy. I'll figure it out.
well, it was an interesting topic. I you know, I mean, I didn't expect it to. Let's go ahead and wrap this up.
Yeah.
Because we can keep
All
going.
right. Won't see you next week, y'all. But
you know what it is? You know what it is, Mark? Now we can do the after gameplay.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna reflect on the. You know, let's just.
Well, see, we're just like the other media outlets. That's what I mean. We're mass media because we just did the broadcast. Now we did the analysis, or we did the play-by-play, and now we're going to go back into the back room, and we're going to have one of those clandestine backroom meetings where we're going to discuss our agenda. Did we get our point across or no?
All right, we're out of here. Take care, guys.
Have a good one. Won't see you next week, but maybe the week after.